Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Deep Dive with the Rhode Island Coalition for Israel, or RICI for short. I'm your host, Executive Director Maria Friedman, and our podcast is a bold exploration of the issues shaping America, Israel, Rhode Island, and the future of Western civilization. We also aim to bring clarity to complex topics so that our viewers have the knowledge and confidence to engage in informed discussions about the world. We're also rooted in Judeo-Christian values, and we like to highlight the grassroots partnership that we have built between Christians and Jews, working to combat anti-Semitism and educate about Israel here in the state of Rhode Island and beyond. So, with that, I'm very excited to welcome a special guest. I have Gilad Skolnick here with me, who is the Regional Director of Advancement for Leket Israel. Please correct me if I got that wrong, but welcome, Gilad.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm honored to be here and to be on this program.
Thank you so much. So let's just jump right in. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about your background, where you have lived, your career path, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in the kibbutz in Israel. I was in the children's house in my first few years. The kibbutz was completely socialist, and it used to exist a mile from Gaza. It was one of the kibbutzim that was destroyed on October 7th, 2023. They actually found tunnels underneath it, but it was invaded like all the other ones and completely destroyed. The survivors are scattered across the country, and only now are they rebuilding it. So I left when I was 6. My father has roots outside Boston. So we came here and grew up in the Boston area. And I went to college in the state in UMass Amherst. After college, I served in the IDF. I returned to Israel. I'm the third generation to do that. My parents served. My grandfather was in the War of Independence. It was very important for me. I was in the spokesperson's unit and uh, hiked all 679 miles of Israel's National Trail. It's
Wow.
it's inspired by the Appalachian Trail, and it goes zigzag across the country. And by the time I finished it, I was, I was really exhausted, and I missed friends and family in this area, and I returned to the Boston area. I've been in the Jewish nonprofit world since, including
Beautiful.
5 years in camera, where I ended up being the director of the campus department for the United States. I was a Hillel director at Northeast University Hillel for 5 years, and the situation was very challenging. It was challenging with anti-Semitism and a lot of other issues, but I loved it. And now I'm at Leket, I've been in a few other places, and now I'm at Leket, which is I was so excited to be part of this because I, after October 7th, I really was looking for an organization that is helping Israel, and my eyes were open to the food insecurity situation in Israel. Once I learned about that, I felt like I had to do something to help.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I have like a million questions about different parts of your background and story, but since you just brought up Leket, can you tell us what is Leket's goal or mission and what impact you have had and how has that felt for you personally being involved in that work, especially as somebody who grew up in Israel?
Yeah, absolutely. So my earliest memories are of Israeli agriculture, of trying to pick a carrot. And my father was the manager of the orchard. We grew avocados and grapefruits and mangoes and so much produce. The Negev, the Israeli desert region uh, where my kibbutz was, Kibbutz Kisufim, grows now 70% of Israel's vegetables, a lot of the fruit, a lot of the produce is created there. And it was always I had a understanding from a young age that Israeli food security a strategic interest for Israel.
Hmm.
And after October 7th, Israel found itself threatened by this. We had, uh, first of all, we know now that there's uh, agricultural terrorism by Hamas. Hamas went out of their way on October 7th to destroy Israeli agriculture. And this was covered by the Wall Street Journal and other mainstream press. They went out of their way, first of all, to kidnap foreign Thai workers. They spoke to them in the Thai language. They knew they were clearly not Jewish, and they went to kidnap and murder them. What does the King of Thailand do right after October 7th? What any leader would do. He called for all the Thai workers. He told them they needed to return. We know that a lot of agricultural workers coming from Gaza before October 7th shared information about a lot of the kibbutzim and towns that grew agriculture. And there's no shortage of targets in that area, but they went out of their way to destroy combines, to destroy tractors. In one kibbutz, they severed the water to the chicken coop, and 300,000 chickens died by the time the kibbutzniks returned. They were burning orchards, destroyed greenhouses. So this, aside from the horror and travesty of it, it put Israel in a dangerous situation. All of a sudden, Israel found itself 30,000 workers short, agricultural workers, between Palestinians who weren't coming anymore for security reasons, foreign workers who were fled or were murdered or kidnapped, and Israelis who lived on the periphery who fled or were murdered or kidnapped. And in addition to that, countries like Turkey end up boycotting selling food to Israel. This isn't the first time that enemies of Israel tried using food as a weapon. We know in the War of Independence that Jerusalem was surrounded and no food was coming in. There was a severe food shortage, and a lot of major people, in both in the CIA here and in Israel, thought that Jerusalem might fall, where about 1 out of 6 Jews were living. So this has been a long-standing strategy, and we've had tens of thousands of rockets and drones destroy vineyards and orchards. We
Wow.
know under the hot Israeli sun what a spark can do in Israel and how that can lead to a fire, and orchards that took 40, 50 years to get to where they are can instantly go up in flames. So I
Wow.
was seeing this. I was seeing that the news reports that rockets are hitting fields. Those aren't oftentimes empty random fields, or fields of agriculture. They're fields growing things. And I especially started looking into it after October 7th, and I was shocked that 1 out of 5 Israelis lives in poverty. Of that, it's about 37% of children. Israel has a high poverty rate,
Hmm.
and with the food prices surging, especially with the lack of supply, and it ended up being that even more people were finding themselves in need. So
Wow.
Leket said, what do? We can't grow more right now. In fact, we have less. But we have to take the Israeli startup mentality and be even more innovative. Now, Leket started about 25 years ago. It wasn't started because of this war, but we grew tremendously since the war. We increased our size by over 100% since before the pandemic, and most of that was since October 7th. And we said, well, a third of all food that's grown in the United States, was grown in Israel, that's grown in a lot of countries, it ends up being thrown out at
Mm.
different stages. Whether at the farms, we've all seen that when we've gone apple picking in the fall, all the apples no one wants because they don't look great. In the supermarket, and we've all seen that too, those bananas, someone else can take them, they're a bit too brown, and then in our fridges. So Leket said, let's take that food that no one else wants, bring volunteers, and pick it. So we ended up uh, actually, the most surprising and inspiring thing is before October 7th, we had 60,000 volunteers a year come to Israel, to Leket, to volunteer and help pick. But half were Israelis, were from all over the world.
Wow.
And after October 7th, we thought the numbers might go down. There's a war. And something incredible happened. It doubled. And last year, we had 120,000 volunteers
Wow.
come and help pick and help just make more out of less.
Wow, this is so like amazing. So we're hearing about obviously the devastation of agricultural terrorism, which is something that I personally never really thought of until October 7th happened. It really opened my eyes that that could be used as, like you said, a form of terrorism or a weapon against the Israeli people. And you guys have now, as an organization, built an incredible system for at least salvaging as much of the produce that is being produced in Israel and making sure that that gets to people who need it. That is absolutely, absolutely incredible. And just, I know it might seem obvious to you and me because we're knee deep in this pro-Israel world, so to speak, but why do you think like Hamas went out of their way? For people who can't really fathom this, why do you think they went out of their way to cause such agricultural harm, kidnap Thai workers, like you said, who weren't Jewish? I mean, again, the answer is probably obvious to us, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, they know that a lack of food is a cutting off Israel from food is a great way to weaken the country. They know that there's Israel is the other countries are boycotting Israel, are not selling food to Israel all over. And if Israel can't grow its own food, then it'll weaken it. Israel will have to make compromises that will jeopardize its security for the sake of feeding her own people. And it's so easy to do. You throw one grenade at a combine. A combine is worth $600,000.
Oh,
You can instantly destroy it. It takes nothing to sever irrigation equipment, a hose that is providing a avocado orchard. It's needed water under the hot Israeli sun. You cut it, it doesn't take long for those avocado trees to wither and die.
mm,
And if you plant it, it takes years to get to the same level as a mature tree.
worse.
And they know this. This has been from the earliest history of Zionism from the first Aliyah in the 1880s. A key part of the Zionist story, of the story of Israel, was to be self-sufficient with food, to not have to be
Hmm.
rely on it. Uh, Israel's not going to be getting food shipments from Syria and Lebanon. The peace agreements with Egypt and Jordan are icy. You know that if Israel's reliant on Europe, that's not always friendly to bring food. Not
Right.
only it's not a great situation, and especially when rockets and missiles are coming, then ships are less likely to come to Israeli ports. So you need to be self-sufficient for that, and uh, you want to make sure people are eating healthy, and that's the other big element. Leket focuses on rescuing only healthy food. Now, we could make sure that we could get maybe perhaps shipments of donuts and Oreos and get people the calories they need, but that's not going to keep people healthy. And we recently found in a study that for every dollar that Leket invests in Israel, it brings back $10 to the Israeli economy. Now, a lot of that is health. If people are eating cucumber tomato salads and or fruit salad instead of donuts, they're going to be a lot healthier. And that's going to have all kinds of ramifications in Israeli society. What's so great about Leket too is we're helping people of all backgrounds. And there's so many times when people visit Israel, including me, we're in the nicest parts of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and we see people in high tech and people in the nice cafes in Tel Aviv. But there's a lot of people, whether it's a single parent family, there's drug abuse, just like there's everywhere. There's people, parents addicted to different things. There's people who've a lot people who have PTSD from the war and they just can't work. We have reservists who fought in Gaza for 300 days. And let's say they had their own plumbing business or they're an electrician. They come back, their clients have moved on to other people. They come back, their business is shattered. It's part of it is a morale booster too. If people are coming back after defending their country and they can't even have food for themselves, so we realize it's also now the Israeli government does help, but they've been fighting a several multiple front war. they're struggling to keep up with a lot, and it takes a while sometimes to get the resources that they need. So the government can't do everything, and that's where we're lucky to have Leket there. It's a non-governmental organization with that Israeli spirit to help.
It's such a beautiful mission of that Leket has, and the fact that, so many people around the world are interested in volunteering in helping, Israel agricultural is incredible. So, can you walk us through just operationally, logistically, how does Leket even organize such an endeavor to go, to all of these agricultural locations, collect the, salvage the fruits, the vegetables, whatever the produce is, and how are you ensuring that it's getting to the people who need it?
So we call ourselves a food bank, but we're more like the FedEx of food. It's such a difficult logistical operation.
Hmm.
We work with 900 farmers, and Israel's a small enough country, and it has a 12 months growing season, and we know them all. And they reach out to us, or we reach out to them when they have food that they either don't have enough workers. Sometimes we've had turned lemons into lemonade. A country in Europe is boycotting buying food that we have too much of, like last summer with mangoes, and then we can give it to people who usually couldn't afford mangoes. And a
Hmm.
farmer calls us up and says, "This country in Europe isn't willing to buy mangoes for me anymore." Sometimes a hailstorm makes those apples too bumpy and no one wants them, and we turn them into applesauce. So if the vegetables don't look great, and we turn them into soups. So we have several components of this. One is to get the volunteers to the fields. We have free shuttles every day, Sunday through Thursday, picking up volunteers from Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. They're coming from all over the world. They sign up, they go for free. We hire tour guides who've lost their jobs because tourism is down, and they can't help it because every inch of Israel has interesting stories. So they'll tell you interesting stories along the way and take you to farms in the periphery. We have a 70,000 square foot logistics center. Think two Costco's where we stored all the food. Nothing is wasted. Any food that isn't good enough for people goes to zoo animals, livestock. And then we've got a farm in the middle of the country that's run by almost all volunteers that someone donated to us. And that is how we rescue the food. And we also rescue prepared meals. The only military that we know of in the world that donates its leftover excess food to people in need is the Israeli Defense Force, IDF. Every single
Wow.
day, 60 to 70 IDF bases give their lunch, which is schnitzels and potatoes and other meat. And when they have leftover food, we come, we pick it up, and we bring it to people who need it. We do the same thing with hotel food in all over the country and high-tech offices. And we also lobby. So about a year and a half ago, we successfully got a law passed through our lobbying efforts that the Knesset, Israel's parliament, passed this law that all government offices have to give their leftover food to people in need. Now,
Wow.
Israel is the only known country in the world to have this law. So food insecurity is a very much important for the entire country to help solve. And in terms of reaching to all these people, we're feeding now 470,000 people a week. If the country is 10 million people, that's a huge amount. Uh, and we're doing this all with food that was ending up in landfills. We kept 70 million pounds of food out of landfills last year. So how are we doing this? And to answer your question, we don't directly feed 470,000 people. That would be a logistical nightmare. We work with about 300 partner organizations. So if you're running a network of 12 women shelters in the north of the country, and you are making sure the lights stay on, the walls are painted, security, programming, staffing, nothing's leaking. You have a lot on your plate. One thing we can take off your plate is we can make sure that everyone in your shelters has access to healthy food. And it doesn't cost you anything. A lot of other food rescue organizations around the planet And in the US, ask for a token amount of money to show that you're serious. We say we don't want anything. We're going to give you what you want. And that way, the, these places apply. We even have secret inspectors come in, or surprise inspectors, to make sure people are keeping the hygiene at the level that is necessary. And doing it with hot food is incredibly difficult because food can spoil. So we have very strict measures. We're using a lot of technology. We're monitoring in real time the temperature of the food. And if it goes down, let's say there's a flat tire and the food cools off, we have to throw it out. But that way we have ensured that no one's gotten sick from our food.
Wow. And just this issue and this urgency of food insecurity in Israel, I personally don't hear it covered in the mainstream media too often. Can you talk about why maybe this isn't so well known, at least in American media?
Yeah. I think there are a few reasons. One is there's an old statement in journalism, if it bleeds, it leads. And this is crisis averted, just like there's a lot of other organizations that are keeping a crisis from happening. So you can imagine the headlines, at least in a lot of the Jewish press, if 470,000 people were in need of food. But by solving it, it's not as interesting of a topic. The news in general, they don't like happy news. Then, of course, it's just like in a lot of situations that Israel has done. Imagine, and we can imagine how many people would be injured or killed from all the rockets if Israel hadn't invested in a network of bomb shelters. And we always say, we look at Gaza and think all those tunnels that Hamas built, those tunnels could have been used for the civilians to go
Of
in, but they
course.
didn't let any civilians in. They refused to let them in, and then you know they said they put it all on Israel when it was fighting terrorists. Well, same thing with just like Israel built a network of bomb shelters, and a lot of it was done by government, a lot of it was done by wonderful nonprofits. The same thing here with food rescue. So we're not seeing this because I believe because it's not something that is an issue, and I think it just shows the beautiful side of Israel. Same thing. I just saw this beautiful video about how 80% of Israel's water comes from the ocean through desalination. And I was thinking, and we hear all the time about water crises everywhere, uh, and there's no water ban, there's no watering ban in Israel, and it's also because the Israeli spirit and Israeli attitude of not being victims and about finding innovative solutions is seen in all walks of life.
So, so beautiful. I love how that spirit obviously runs through the course of Leket and everything that you do. I just want to go back to one part of your story at the beginning. I know you said that you used to work with camera, overseeing the different campuses in the US, and then you also were a Hillel director. Like, can you talk about similarities and differences between those two jobs and how you, reflect on your work then and your work now?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I When I was at Canberra, I worked with 80 campuses. My satellite office was a JetBlue plane. So I never really got to know a campus well. And I had the privilege of working with some of the students who were the most passionate about Israel and were very educated about the situation. And I loved it. When I worked at Hillel, I had an amazing opportunity to meet a lot of students who came not knowing much. Some of them came with negative views, but the majority just came with a blank slate. So that was incredibly interesting to be zoomed in on the campus to really get to know all kinds of students from all backgrounds. My goal was to welcome everyone to Hillel, but for them to know that Hillel was a pro-Israel place and that we would have pro-Israel events. We had lots of events that had nothing to do with Israel and were all about Jewish holidays and Jewish events as well. An additional challenge at Hillel was navigating the university politics. For example, the university hired a pro-BDS rabbi from their own, even though there was a Chabad and a Hillel on campus. On my first year, I had to work with the Jewish Federation to explain to the university why a rabbi that reflected a small percentage, very minuscule percentage of student views was not a good fit for the university. I had other challenges. When I started, we weren't allowed to table on campus. Uh, Hillel had lost its club status for some technical bureaucratic reason right before I arrived, and it took a long time to get that sorted out. So the additional politics was extremely challenging, but I was very happy to be able to be there and to be able to have be able to have a good influence. It was there that my eyes to food insecurity were open. And we had all these leftover Shabbat dinners,
Mhm.
and we opened a food fridge right outside the university and we had extension cord, it was real ad hoc connected to our building, and it was right outside the Hillel and in the Fenway area. And we took those leftover Shabbat dinners and just gave them to everyone who needed them. And we were worried a bit about security, but we said, no, we want to feed people. And then after October 7th, I thought, I didn't realize there was so much food insecurity in Boston. I wonder what the situation is in Israel. I didn't realize, for example, 30,000 Holocaust survivors are in Israel and rely on us for food every week. There's people fleeing war in Ukraine, fleeing the draft in Russia. There's Ethiopian Jews who are coming. There's people of so many interesting backgrounds and stories who just don't have food and are waiting sometimes through our organizations for hours needing food. In and they so I feel so it's so interesting for me how one thing led to another that and led to another.
Yes, and there's kind of been this through line of food, even though very different roles. And we might have to do a separate part two and dive into the university politics and the
Yeah.
anti-Semitism that you saw there, because that's a whole other juicy topic. But what you're doing, with Leket is incredible. Can you talk more about like what your day-to-day looks like? Because I know, you're doing regional advancement for America, but are you going to Israel often? Do you go on the ground? Are you mostly working from the US? Just tell us more about what the role entails and how that's been for you.
Yeah, it's very dynamic. It's very exciting, the role. Last month, we did an event with the Jewish Federation of Maine, Jewish Federation of New Hampshire, and the equivalent of a federation in Vermont, in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, to encourage volunteerism in Israel that Leket spearheaded and the Jewish Federation of New Hampshire hosted. I speak at synagogues, day schools and JCCs all over New England. And I help spread the word about this to encourage both volunteers and people to support us and to support our mission. We also are we started a new rabbinic circle that I'm overseeing to get rabbis join our rabbinic circle by volunteering or donating, and we put on events for them throughout the year, including two rabbis in Providence, Rabbi Mack and Rabbi Fell. Rabbi Fell is a co-chair of the rabbinic circle, and in addition to that, uh, we put on we're constantly putting on other events to get to know what Leket is doing. Next month, I'm speaking at the Camera on Campus conference about a new
Beautiful.
initiative to bring positive elements of Israel to the campus squad, teaching students how to table about food insecurity in Israel, so more people know that there is food insecurity in Israel. It's oftentimes, as we talked about, not talked about enough, and it's a great way to approach Israel for students and reach students. So that's just a bit tip of the iceberg. But one thing I love about Leket is that it gives me a lot. The organization has provided a lot of flexibility in how to reach different people wherever they are. In terms of getting to Israel, I've gone twice. My most recent trip with Leket was in October with a mission of major donors, and we toured the different things that the country is doing so we could all see it firsthand. For me, the most shocking part was in South Tel Aviv. There are homeless survivors of the Nova Music massacre who have so much PTSD and they're living on the streets right now in Tel Aviv. And they just can't, they, they, for whatever reason, they aren't able to live in their home and can't function. And we want to make sure the least we can do is that they're eating healthy meals. So we are working with a nonprofit that brings healthy meals through social workers to these female and male Nova survivors are homeless right now. We went to the north to Kiryat Shmona, a city that's been devastated by missiles and rockets. The people who are living there are in uh, there's just not much open. There's not many jobs that have come back. And we're working with nonprofits there to provide, and we bring these healthy meals so they can give to the people there. We went to other areas. Another beautiful story was in Nativ HaSara. It's a moshav touching the Gaza Strip that was invaded on October 7th. It was also invaded and hit hard. And the first thing that the farmers did when they came back is they wanted to bring back the farms, bring them back to life, and to start growing things to donate to Leket as well. So we saw their inspirational story. And that's just so many uh, beautiful stories of people volunteering. There's reservists who've spent hundreds of days defending Israel, whether in the north or south. They get a day off and they spend their day volunteering with Leket because they want to do more. And at the same time, the shocking, sad story is one of the newest people that the newest demographics that we never expected to support right now in Israel are former Leket donors who are now waiting for food. With sales tax in Israel is 18%. Gas now is $11. A lot of people have lost their jobs because of either the war or PTSD or businesses that have gone under. And at the very least, we can make sure that they can have access to healthy, dignified meals. Now, there's so much dignity in a lot that these organizations provide that a few years ago, people from Eastern Europe, tourists, were waiting in line and they, in places that were meant for people who were food insecure and they didn't realize it. And they were writing on message boards, come to Israel, they provide amazing meals for free to tourists. Now, we put a stop to that. Our goal isn't to feed Eastern European tourists,
Right.
but it just shows that there's so much respect and people aren't made to feel like it's just a soup kitchen.
That's incredible. Also, just as a social worker, I have my master's in social work. It just touches my heart to hear that you guys are really getting it to the people who need it. And it's just unthinkable to think that, Holocaust survivors and Nova Festival survivors might be homeless or not have meals, and you guys are stepping in to do such critical work. So I know you mentioned Eastern European volunteers, but can you tell us more about the types of volunteers that you're seeing, where they're coming from, why they want to go to Israel, how long do they stay? All of that, because I think it's beautiful that so many people felt the call after October 7th.
Yeah, so in the past, people went to Israel to uh, do so many other things that they don't do now. They would hang out on the beach and snorkel and relax in the sun. And fewer people these days are going to do that. I hope that will improve soon. But people wanted to give back. And what we found is people extended their trip, maybe not to relax on the beach, but to help the people who are food insecure, people who are suffering from a lack of food. And we found most of our tourists are coming from the either Israel or the United States, but really from all over. I was picking pomelas, which is like grapefruity
Mm-hmm.
fruit, 2 miles from the Gaza Strip in Kibbutz Re'im, one of the kibbutzim that was invaded on October 7th, with Leket. And next to me were a bunch of tourists from the Jewish community in Costa Rica.
Oh.
And there were Americans on another side. And then there was a woman, Rivka. And I asked Rivka, where are you coming from? And she said, from Jerusalem. And I said, how often have you come? And she said, I can't come more than twice. Listen, I'm 85. It's such a long schlep. I'm spending 6 hours under the hot sun, picking fruit. It's really hard for me. And I said, 2 times? That's amazing. This is exhausting for me just once. And she said, I wish I could come more often every week. I said, every week, Rivka? So for some people in Israel, this is their retirement. In fact, we've had farmers specifically ask for retired groups because even though they might not have the energy of a 25-year-old, they've done it so often and they keep on coming again and again. And they're experienced and determined, and it's just a beautiful thing. And for them, it's part of their retirement. So if you're people ask what's too old, what's too young, and I say, if you can go apple picking in New England, if you're 4 years old, or if you're 94 years old, if you can do that here, then you can do that there. We also have a sorting option inside our logistics center, which is not under the sun. And we've had to, when it was really the worst days, when there was a lot of rocket fire and missiles, and we had to say no to volunteers, which was awful because we had all this food rotting away. There were still volunteers who wanted to come and do it, and
Mm-hmm.
we had to be strict ones. Uh, so when I was at this kibbutz in Reim, at the end of the day, they said, pick some fruit for yourselves. And I said, I can't take it from you. You've been through so much. And they said, you don't understand. We don't have enough workers. They're just going to rot here if you don't take it. So I picked as much as I could and I ate all the way to the airport. But it's, the more bromelos and grapefruit than I ever expected. But that's the situation. So when we recently had the Iran war, what happened? Tourists weren't coming, so the hotels didn't have extra food to give us. IDF bases called up reservists. We didn't have extra food to take from there. And then people working from home, we didn't have it from the high tech offices. We had no volunteers coming. All of a sudden, we found ourselves in food crisis. Now, we can't tell people who don't have any food, oh, you can eat when the war's over.
Of
So
course.
we did, so we did something that cost us a lot of money. Usually, it only costs us 20 cents a pound, about $1.50 to rescue a full meal, which is like a $10-15 meal. But we ended up buying food from catering companies so that we could continue feeding people. And one thing that was really amazing is all kinds of organizations and federations and people like stepped up to help make that possible when the war was happening so people could continue eating. So it's very touching and inspiring to meet all these people and see uh, people helping, whether it's volunteering or raising awareness or fundraising. There's sometimes just lemonade stands and they raise a few $100s or $100, but a few hundred over the summer, and it has a huge impact.
That is incredible. I definitely next time I go to Israel would love to do some volunteering with you guys. Sounds
Yeah,
very meaningful. Can you talk about the current situation now with, this war with Iran, IRGC? How is that impacting Leket and its operations? And just what is the vibe, I guess, right now?
yeah. So we are very quick to the moment things got quiet, the next day almost, or day after, I think it was the next day, we sent volunteers because there were fruit that were rotting and vegetables, and we had to pick it. Farmers have been hit hard, so hard over the past few years, and we understand it's a part of Israel's security. So we have a microloan program for farmers. We had emergency grants for farmers. In the worst days of the wars over the past few years, we even got gift certificates to farmers who were displaced, who were giving to us so much so we could give back so they wouldn't just stay in their hostels or hotels where they were displaced, and they could go out and have a meal at a restaurant and help those restaurants too. we've had emergency grants so they can rebuild their irrigation system. And during the war, we weren't able to help bring volunteers, and we had to buy food. And that was a huge cost for us. It was a huge burden. It's impacted how many people we can reach, but we just didn't want to stop supporting the people who were relying on us. It put a pause on some of our other plans. And we are very thankful that the moment everything the second things quiet down, we are back in business. Another thing we've done is, let's say there's a missile or rocket that destroys someone's home. They get out of a shelter, everything's destroyed. They ran in their pajamas. Right now, the only thing they might literally own are the pajamas on their body. That's it. What do they do next? The government will quickly put them in a hotel or a hostel, but the government doesn't have the resources to make sure everyone has, and they make sure they have enough calories, but not the best food, the equivalent of frozen TV dinners, so that everyone can eat. And that's where Leket jumps in, and we created these temporary fruit and vegetable stands in the hotels, all with rescued fruits and vegetables that people could come in and pick the fruit that's idle, the bored, their business was destroyed, their home's destroyed, they're sitting there. Now they can create their own salad. They can pick a banana or an apple. They meet around there. It's like the water cooler. They can make salads together. They can feel human. They can feel like people. And that was a big goal for us. And then as soon and even though we're there for people during an emergency, we don't view ourselves as an emergency organization.
Mm-hmm.
And we function best when it's not an emergency, when we can send volunteers everywhere. And there's all these beautiful organizations that we are helping. There's one organization I visited in October, people with different disabilities who are taking old discarded computers that ended up or would have ended up in landfills, and they rebuild them and fix whatever's wrong and then sell it at a discounted price. And that way, these people who couldn't get jobs anywhere else can be independent. Because if my laptop breaks, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna throw it out and maybe it's just a small wire that went kaput. So we provide healthy meals to these people, all rescued meals from different places. And we bring it to schools too. A lot of these kids, there's all these last chance schools, and these kids would leave school at 2 or 1, roam the streets. Their homes weren't in great. Either their parents were working late or were had different addictions or were just absent. And instead of getting into trouble on the street, now they get warm rescued meals through Lek in the school. So what happens? They stay there. They want to eat and they socialize. And the teachers are there. The school has a teachers or aides stay to help them with their homework. And then what do we see? That they end up gaining skills, whether it's to become, they end up going to either vocational college or to other colleges or learn some trade or end up maybe they wouldn't have gone to the IDF because they would have dropped out of high school and now they can serve there. So it really helps them break out of that cycle. And that, for me, is so exciting to see. And then the last thing that really inspires me is the nutrition program. So we bring nutritionists, and people say, why would you bring a nutritionist? And you're feeding people. Why do you need to educate people? Well, if you're coming from the Jewish community of Ethiopia, where they don't grow eggplants, and you get a raw eggplant, and you've never seen that in your life, you don't know what to do with it. It's not intuitive. You can't just bite into it like you would an apple. And if you're coming from Ukraine fleeing war, might have not seen a papaya or an avocado, or some of the Druze or Bedouin populations in Israel might not know what to do with fruit that weren't traditionally grown there. So we're educating people what to do with it so they know how to cook it and the nutritional aspects of it. And it causes people to be more excited about it. And they get introduced to these fruits and vegetables. One parent said that her kid who went through this program ended up, when they were in the supermarket, steering her towards the produce aisle, when up till then, every day she wanted to go to the snack aisle. They just had never even seen or thought about produce because it wasn't on their radar. So it's exciting to see.
Well, first of all, I just want to say every time I've been to Israel, they seem to eat a lot more fruits and vegetables than I feel like the average American does. So I could see why that is such a like big focus of Leket as well. And like you said, those emergency fruit and vegetable stands in some of the hotels and hostels, I can imagine that going a long way. If anyone hasn't had Israeli breakfast, you have to have like a classic Israeli breakfast when you go to Israel. You can get it at most, restaurants, hotels, or in someone's home, but there's always at least a lot of vegetables, which I love. I personally love that. But something that just, is striking me as we're having this conversation is just, again, the innovation of the Israeli spirit and also just Jewish joy, like being proud and happy that, this Jewish organization in Israel is feeding so many people, making a difference, doing something positive, like we talked about, isn't really covered in the media. I think it relates to this concept of Jewish joy, and I hope that it enhances that joy, for the people working in the organization and the volunteers. Can you just talk a little bit more about how you think your work connects to broader pro-Israel activism, so to speak?
Yeah, and I'd like to touch on the Jewish joy part too. I You mentioned at the beginning of the program about Judeo-Christian values. Well, leket is the word for gleaning in the Old Testament, and when we see it a few different times, we see it when the Israelites cross through the Red Sea in the Torah, and Moses asks for God to send manna, and these hungry Israelites need food, and the word that is used to gather the manna is leket.
Hmm.
And then we see it again in around April or May in the Torah reading. If is in uh, There's a commandment, a mitzvah, that the corners of your field, the parts that you forgot to gather, and the parts that are left after the harvest, go to the food insecure, to the hungry. And that mitzvah is leket. And then we see it in the story of Ruth in Shavuot when she is hungry and she is gathering the food from the field, and we see Leket again. So it's pretty amazing that we are able to do this commandment, this mitzvah, thousands of years later in the land of Israel, in the same place, not in the exact same way, but in the same spirit of it. And that's what drives us and keeps us going. That is along with the other commandment, the other mitzvah of Bal Tashchit, not to waste. And nothing is wasted, and that really inspires us. So in terms of pro-Israel activism, one is a nonprofit just started in New England called the Food Rescue Institute. And their goal is to take our playbook, translate it from Hebrew to English, and help other food um, organizations dealing with food insecurity. And we said, of course, you can have, nothing's proprietary. We'd love to help. And now they're reaching out and working with other nonprofits, translating our work and helping to spread what Leket has done, our innovations with the rest of the world and helping them. Where in terms of pro-Israel activism, I think that one, if countries learn, they will learn here, and rather than boycotting, they can learn from us. They can. We're happy to help. We're helping in many ways up till now too, through all different kinds of organizations and conferences, and that is a great way to see this positive side of Israel. I
Yeah.
think that in terms of there's oftentimes an inaccurate, uh, the media inaccurately portrays Israel uh, as this Goliath versus David, and we inaccurately think that everyone is wealthy in Israel and there aren't people suffering, there aren't people who are food insecure, and it's great to see just in terms of the innovation that is happening. I think it can be inspirational. We definitely have a lot of non-Jewish supporters. We're an organization called Christians for Leket. We've got a lot of non-Jewish, a lot of Christian supporters of Leket that volunteer, that help from all over the world. when I was in Israel in October. I met a lot of them, and it's really exciting to see. And I think that it's different uh, in terms of just showing people that how the war has affected different elements of society is important. And food
Definitely.
prices have skyrocketed in Israel, and it's I have so many images I've seen. You've got one Iron Dome. m- Uh, Iron Dome shoots down rockets and missiles from Iran, other places. They create shrapnel. The shrapnel flies into orchards like the one in the picture behind me. They devastate them, they destroy them, and it's gonna take years. It might be quiet today in Israel, but we're gonna feel for decades to come the damage that these wars from countries surrounding Israel have, the effects of it.
Great. Yeah. And I just want to also encourage, all of our listeners, regardless of their faith affiliation, to get involved with Leket. I know you mentioned that there's a Christian group, but however you identify, sounds like there's lots of opportunities to get involved. What's the best way for people to find information about Leket if they're interested in volunteering or donating? How can they do that?
So the best way is if you go to our website, leketusa.org, and from leketusa.org, you can see everything from volunteering to how you can support us. It takes 6 quarters to provide a meal for someone who wouldn't have had it. And so it's very little can have a huge impact for someone's life. I know when I miss one meal, how I feel. So a lot of times Israelis have to choose between heating their homes and having a meal or having the equivalent of chips or a healthy meal that makes them feel good. And through that, my email is Gilad at leket.us. If you email me, I'm very responsive. I'm the New England representative. I'm happy to direct people to anyone else and answer any questions. We love when people come volunteer. We love when people introduce us to other people who might be interested in just spreading the word. And we're very grateful for everything.
That's great. I also just want to ask you, out of curiosity, if Leckett or you had an unlimited budget, what's a dream project or initiative that you guys would like to work on or
Ah,
something you'd like to expand?
so one is we have 2 million people living in poverty. We're right now feeding 470,000 people. Reaching all 2 million might sound unrealistic for some people, but given that before pandemic, we're reaching about a fourth of that, then we've already increased times four. One thing we would love to do is use dehydrated food. If there's
Mm,
food that's going bad, if we could dehydrate it and then save it, that costs money to create the infrastructure for that. And that would be a dream of ours right now. We have other dreams. We're working to electrify our fleet. Uh, it's $11 a gallon for gas in Israel. If we could have some of our food rescue vans be electric, that would help a lot. And rather than and save more money for food. Israel has plenty of sun. And another thing that we'd love to do is have an emergency amount of rations. So when the next war happens, this bank, kind of like a blood bank, a food bank, we can instantly get that food,
mm,
not have to buy it at current prices, negotiate, get good prices, and provide it. And if amazing thing happens and all this food isn't needed for that's going to be, then we can still provide it to people who are food insecure. And so that is some of our goals and dreams, I guess.
yes. Well, I really hope and pray that you guys can continue doing this amazing work, expanding, and that you can achieve some of those goals. I also, again, encourage all of our listeners to get involved with Leket. Also, next time you want to go to Israel please take advantage of this opportunity to volunteer and do something so beneficial and meaningful to people who need it. Lastly, is there anything else that you'd like to share about your work or something that you wish people knew about Israel?
Uh, I want to tell people, I guess, to focus on what an amazing experience it is to volunteer with Leket. People have told me that they have volunteered with so many organizations and they found Leket to be the most organized. Of all volunteers in Israel last year, we believe the largest amount of volunteers was with Leket, and that's for a reason. We have a WhatsApp group. You can even choose before what shuttle to get on to what you want to do, whether it's to pick grapefruit or grapes or weed, where you're going to be. Uh, People have said it's such an inspirational, such a moving and experience, a memorable experience, and we're so grateful for that. I feel very humbled to be part of Leket. It's so great for me to be in the food rescue field right now, and I'm very grateful. A lot of people say to me, I can't fly to Israel right now, and I'm not in a situation where I can donate. What can I do to help? Everybody knows someone. We don't want to spend money on advertising. We'd rather spend it on feeding people. If you could help just get the word out, connect us to people you know, connect us to organizations you know, places to speak, places to spread the word, and we rely on word of mouth so much. So if you could just tell one other person, that would be amazing.
I think that is a call that we can all partake in. I think it's so essential, especially if you care about Israel. It's a way that we can strengthen Israel even from afar. So I think that is so beautiful. Well, thank you again, Gilad, for sharing more about your important work with us. I learned a lot through our conversation and again encouraged people to get involved with Leket. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so
Thank
much as well.
you.